Hey there, how's it going? It's me, Commandant Franz, and I'd like to talk about the timeline of The Lord of the Rings. So if you don't know, in Tolkien's works there are three important ages, and those are the First Age, the Second Age, and the Third Age. And the first year of the First Age begins when the sun rises for the first time, and the last year of the Third Age is around the events of The Lord of the Rings. So I'm going to do a little equation to our timeline to prove a point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to equate the first year of the First Age to the birth of Christ. Now you might wonder why I'm doing that. What is the correlation between these two dates? They don't really seem similar. Well, you'll see that the reason I'm doing this is to be generous. So the First Age lasted about 600 years. And then the Second Age lasted about 3,400 years. And the Third Age lasted about 3,000 years. So if we add all that up, that's about 7,000 years. So now in our timeline, if we go 7,000 years from the starting point, we end up obviously in the year 7,000. And now maybe you see why I chose to be generous. Because the year 1 in the Lord of the Rings timeline is supposed to be at least technologically later than the year 1 in our timeline. Maybe it would be more like, I don't know, 900. It's not really clear. He doesn't go into great specifics about what the technology looks like, I don't think. But that would be a more fair equation. But I'm trying to be very generous because we find that the Lord of the Rings takes place in 7,000. What year is it right now? Unless you're watching this wacky far in the future, it's just a bit after the year 2000. So when we were going from 0 to 2000 to 7,000, that's a really ridiculously long distance of time to be for anything, really. Now, in some ways this makes sense because there are elves who live a really long time. So it kind of makes sense that, say, the War of the Last Alliance, which happened about 3,000 years before the events of The Lord of the Rings, would have some effect on The Lord of the Rings. Whereas the, say, Bronze Age collapse, which happened maybe 3,000 years before today, it doesn't, obviously it had huge effects in that if it hadn't happened, history would have gone differently, but it doesn't have any tangible effects. You can't point to anything and say that was caused by the Bronze Age collapse specifically. But this kind of makes sense because there are elves who live a really long time, so there are people still alive from 3,000 years ago who remember that. But like technologically, it doesn't make any sense. When you're going 7,000 years and you're not inventing a steam engine, that's ridiculous. Let's do an even more generous thing. And just off the top of my head, the first reference to steel that I can remember is at the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, where it said that the orcs covered their weapons and armor in cloth so that they bore no naked steel, so the glint couldn't be seen from far away. So let's equate this clearly widespread use of steel in their timeline, and there's very likely a reference to steel before this. This just happens to be the one that I remember. So let's equate that to the very first discovery of steel in our timeline. Widespread use to the very first discovery, to be very generous. And that would be around 1,400 BC. So now if we evolve that forward in time, okay, now it's only the year 6,000. That's still ridiculous. From now to 6,000, that's twice as much time as has elapsed from the birth of Christ to now. That's 4,000 years in the future. Do you know what was happening 4,000 years in the past? Widespread human sacrifice. That's right, in the year 6,000, people are going to be looking at the fact that today that we shit in toilets, and they're going to be saying that that was as bad as we think human sacrifice was. Goodbye.